Okay, today is March 7th, 2023. We're looking at EU, Euro, US dollar. I've got my higher time frame outlook on the screen. On the left-hand side, I have my buy-side drawings. And on the right-hand side, I have my sell-side drawings. I've woken up to this huge initiation down, and now we're going to talk about my trading, which was in this sort of area here. I ran two shorts and two longs, and we'll get into those in a little bit. Um, First, just to talk about the higher time frame aspect and what's actually going on. So we've had this sell primary form here, which hasn't activated. So we've got this range initiation. It breaks on itself, but it doesn't break major structure. There isn't any major structure for it to break unless it's down here. So as far as I'm concerned, this is not an active range that we can play off of. However, it could be an event that was created for cause, meaning we're putting money up here, liquidity, or it could be that it's going to just play off of one of these primary ranges that have been built, have been activated, and are completely valid. So if we are going to do that, then it would be likely that we would mitigate one of them and initiate away. And that is exactly what's happened, right? We've got this one that's active, right? It ranged, it broke major structure, took liquidity, ticks all the boxes. This is a sell primary. And this one in here ticks all the boxes too. Took liquidity. You can actually see it from this chart. It's tight to see it. You have to zoom in, but they took liquidity here off of this range that broke structure, and they came up over the structure, broke on themselves, and then broke major structure. So that one, again, is another fully activated primary. So we've got two. So a rather weird situation that we don't see very often is an active primary, and then two unactivated primaries back to back. So this whole area is like primary land, which could actually mean that they're just creating this for cause, especially when they stack them like this, so tight together, could become cause. But we're not certain, right? We never know what's actually going to happen. So we can just sort of see, we just observe what we see and react on based on what we know. So we had this deep mitigation here, pulled back, couldn't break structure. Again, they come up, taking the liquidity again from the same area, and this one to me is right at the top of this range here. I think it mitigated right at the very high here. So what does that represent? Well, it represents it's a valid sell mitigation, and it represents a deep mitigation. Okay, again, so that's another deep mitigation right here. And what do we expect from a deep mitigation? Hardcore initiation away, and that's what was going on right now. So broken structure this time. And so, does that mean we're going to break all structure? Who knows? I don't know. But I do believe that, I was a believer in this to go lower prices. And so, I'm still a believer in this as well. It's the same pattern, it's the same absolutely everything. So, I'm expecting lower prices. And it looks now that this was all causal. One other thing I wanted to talk about is on the buy side of the things here. We had a deep mitigation here, but see how the initiation is not the same as the one that we can see on the sell side, or as you can see on both sides, obviously. But look at the initiation here versus the initiation here, completely different. And I even wrote this at a couple of days ago. No aggressive initiation away. What's that meaning? We're short, right? Shorts. I didn't have any anticipation that price would come up over liquidity up the top. None whatsoever. I honestly thought we'd just react and stay within this range, react and then push down, just based on everything I'd been seeing. However, it just seems like this was a liquidity creation event, and so they've created all this liquidity, and it's all been taken now. So now we understand its purpose. So let's clean up this chart here as well, and then move to our lower time frame outlook and see what's going on there. One other thing to mention is that this initiated at 7 a.m. There was news, 7 a.m. news. There's also 9 a.m. news today. So there's a bit of news coming out today. Not that I care really too much about it. It's all factored in. In my personal opinion, technical data analysis covers absolutely everything. The fundamentals are already prefabricated and pre-worked in the levels that they're going to move price to. The only benefit of knowing about a news event is to position yourself correctly and expect whipsaws. So if you're playing small lower time frame stuff and right before a news announcement, you can pretty much expect to get taken out, whipsawed, right? Let's say you're short here, and there's a news announcement, and you're short, and then all of a sudden there's a news announcement, boom, they're going to take liquidity here, and then they might continue in the direction you were going. So it's for that reason you don't really want to be trading around the news. However, news events can be extremely profitable, like this one, right? So if you are positioned well and you've got a really good higher time frame entry that's like mitigated off a 1 hour block, for instance, you could easily hold that during news events. And this again is just my opinion. Okay, going on to our lower time frame outlook here, and we'll talk about everything on the chart. So I took 2 buys and 2 shorts, and let's cover our shorts today because I think they were the most interesting so far, right? Because of course we had that initiation away. So how do you play a continuation of that initiation, right? So here we are. I've woken up to the screen around here, 7 a.m. ish, seen this initiation, and I'm looking at everything and going, okay, so what's going on? What's going on? So we've got this range in here, range initiation. Price zips up very close to it, does not connect. There's gap in here, okay? And so for that reason, because it's a gap, I have to see what it mitigated, right? So I draw my line, my arrow, all the way over, and I'm looking to find what did we mitigate. And here's what we mitigated. Okay, range, initiation, break of structure, and then this came in over the top of it, became a buy primary, and mitigated and initiated away. Completely unmitigated, right? Left unmitigated. That's important. So as price comes back to here, let's turn all these notifications off. One moment, please. And if y'all could just give me 1 extra second, there's one other thing I need to do real quick on the phone. Turn all that off. Completely forgot. My bad. I'm sorry about that. 1 sec, 1 sec, 1 sec. There it is. Off. Okay. Apologies for the delay there. My bad. Okay. So we've had let me get my bearings. Let me get my bearings again. We've had this. This is what we're talking about here. This event here. So what I've written in my notes up here is that the buy primary mitigation, and it's also a transitional order block mitigation, right? So I understand that this is going to become liquidity. So I always put my symbol up here to represent transitional order block. But it is a buy primary, and you can see what I wrote next to it. Buy primary good mitigation has enough strength to break structure if it wants to. And I think that's important. If it wants to, right? Because typically I've been like writing things like I know what's about to happen. Oh yeah, this is about to happen. This is what's going on. This is how the markets work. They do this and then they have to do this, and that's just not true. But this is just potential. So if it wants to break structure, it can. And by structure, I meant down here. Okay. And so I see that mitigation. I know it's a buy primary, and I know they can break structure if they want to, if they choose to. But I want to kind of get in on something a little bit more substantial than that. And so, stopping here is also cause creation, right? We know that this is putting liquidity in this area. It stopped right before an order block. They only do that when they're stacking. But we don't want to miss out on moves either. We need to know when they're going to mitigate something and potentially stack this for later or not. And this is our way of identifying if it's going to be later or not, is looking at what you mitigated. And if it was a buy primary or a sell primary, then you're in, as far as like that's a valid, strong mitigation. This would have been very strong if that was a sell primary. Because we're sells, right? The fact that it mitigated a buy primary, it doesn't support sell prices, it supports buying prices, higher prices. And that's why this is just a causal creation. Okay, anyway, moving on. So we've had that. then we get this range, initiation, break of structure. This is the range that comes in over the top, creates a sell primary, breaks on itself, and breaks major structure. So we've got a valid primary range that we can play off of. Okay. Now, as I look from the B to C leg, let's bring this over here. So we've got A leg here, we've got B leg here, and we've got C leg over here. I look up between my B and my C, and I see that this is the last known range, but there is this other range in here that I do notice and I do see, obviously, right? This is not new to anybody at all. So we've got these, clean up the chart. So we've got this sell primary range that's in here, completely playable. Then we get this. We get a mitigation at sell primary. And then, okay, yeah, brilliant. Sorry, I'm just reading my own notes. Amazing, Gare. Amazing stuff, right? So then let's bring out our replay tool, because I dropped down to a 5 second. I've been playing around a lot with transitional order blocks lately. I've been doing a lot of studying and research on that department, and this is something I've been noticing is another interesting way to another interesting way to enter the market. But this is another interesting observation, really, to confirm what price is doing. And that's exactly what I did here. Okay, so we've had this mitigation. How do we know this is the mitigation? How do we know they're not just going to pull here, pull break structure here, and then come up here, right, to this range and shoot down? Well, this transitional order block tells us a lot of information. It tells us information about the type of mitigation and what BFI, banks and financial institutions, are up to. So let's zip in. We're on a 5 second chart, okay? And this is very, very high level stuff, right? So, as you start sort of researching more and doing your own research and whatnot, you'll start to see transitional order blocks and how they play, and why they're so valid, so incredible. Okay, so every single mitigation, it doesn't matter what it is, on a lower time frame, will have what I call a transitional order block. It's basically, if we're about to mitigate something, we're buying, and we're about to mitigate something and then change into selling, what will happen, and they do this every single time, no questions asked, right? They will create a buy order block if we're on a sell, right? So we've got this order block in here. They'll create that order block on the lower time frame. They'll have their mitigation event, which will be, touching the order block or the absolute extreme. Then they will break through the order block with speed and aggression. Now, there's lots to this. They don't have to break through with speed and aggression, but if this is an actual high, one that I would put a caret above the top of it, saying that this is a high, then it will break with speed and aggression, and hopefully a break in structure also. So now I could do a whole lesson on this. In fact, I will do a whole lesson on this eventually, but for right now, you can just observe what's going on here. So we've had this mitigation, and right before this candle was the mitigation. Again, 5 second chart. We've had this one bar, this little blue guy in here, right? The doji. He ranges here. This is the range bar. Range, initiation, takes the mitigation, and then as like a hurricane, boof, right down. Okay, so what that's telling us is we've got a transitional order block right here. This becomes transitional because it's had the mitigation. It was a buy order block, and it should have held. And instead, price just ran right through it like a steam train. Okay, so there's our transitional. What happens is prices then come up over the top of it, creating a sell primary, actually, because this was a range initiation, breaker structure. This was the sell primary that formed. So this is absolutely beautiful on the lower time frame as well. And but the interesting part about this was the mitigation of the transitional order block. Now, typically this is cause because it's mitigating a transitional. However, it's a transitional order block, right, into an order block. See how this is an actual order block, even though this was the transitional. It's tricky to grasp, I guess, but if you think about it as like we've had the range, we've zipped up, had that mitigation, pulled back down, and now we're actually just mitigating this range here, this new range, right? But it's also the same as this transitional. It sort of matches up. It's a double whammy. And then as you see it, pull down, break structure in like Flynn. this relies upon having the exact location mapped out very well, knowing what price is doing. This only will work if you have a really a primary. If you're reacting off of a primary, this is the only time that this is going to work out. Or it will have to be in a time where you understand the market mechanics and what's going on. So here I understand why we're mitigating here, whether or not we're actually going to get the mitigation or not, and it's going to be the high or not, we don't know. But we do get this pattern here. They slam through a transitional order block. Now, do I want to just enter here? Here's a question. Do I just want to enter here, 1.5 pip stop, take it right the tick, Is that the right way to trade this? In my opinion, no. I need to see an unwillingness of price to want to transact in and around the transitional area. And when I see the unwillingness to transact, this is unwillingness. This is coming up, touching, and pushing away. Breaking structure. We got structure all over the place, right? And so this is a mitigation with structure. And so all I'm trying to do at this point is to try to get my stop to cover the last high, the last known high before that structural break. And I'm taking this as a structural break and this is the high. Ideally, I want to be entering on an ideal world, I want to be always covering that high. Okay, so I'd really, 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 really want to be looking at an entry like this. Okay, that's a 2 pip entry, sorry, 2 pip stop. And so, as you can see, I would have never gotten tagged, right? Covering that high. And so, this is me doing my risk. The risk that I chose to take was to assume that this high will hold. That's it. That's really it. That's what I'm risking here, because there is a definite chance we could come up to this higher area here. And if they do that, then I'm going to have to come up with another idea for myself. But I'm seeing intention, right? I'm seeing intention. I'm getting breaks of structure. I'm getting all the rest of it. And so there's my entry. And it's a beautiful entry. I held all the way. No break evens. No stops. No, well, obviously a stop at the high at the maximum high there, but and so this is like the most interesting part for me. I didn't get tagged, right? I got very close to getting tagged, but I didn't get tagged yet, and yet I'm still hunting, right? I'm seeing everything that's happening, and then we get another primary form, and I'm like, okay, this is interesting. This is the last known range. This is kind of, excuse me. This is the range that I want to, be playing off of. Last known range that I can see. This is the one I would like to see a mitigation. But I also understand they can mitigate open. The open of the cell primary. They mitigate open. They can mitigate this last known range. They can do a deep mitigation, and they can use these cell primaries as liquidity as well, and they can come up above them to create new primaries. Right, so there's several ways in which they use primaries, but the predominant way they use them is to mitigate off the last known range. That's the most common, in my opinion. Second common would be open, and then third common would be deep mitigation. So I see a cell primary mitigation, open mitigation. I annotate it, poof, right there. And I understand what's happening. Again, I'm using this new sort of transitional order block method in here. And this one's a little different, right? Still on the 5-second chart. So on this one, I can see that this is actually the transitional range here. And as we've come sort of down into it, we mitigate and hang around like a bit of a dirty smell, hang around here in this range, but for a bit too long. But I also understand, and I've done a lot of research on transitionals, that they can create them in multiple ways. This can also be the transitional, right? We would have preferred it to have been here and to slam down, but we can also have a higher time frame one as long as it hasn't been mitigated out of. And you see how price doesn't touch it here. It comes very close, and it may even just touch the open, right? Just once, right there. But that's all. And then the rest of it is slammed through it. So for me, I'm very interested in this one. And on this one particularly, I believe I just placed well, let's see how this played out. Was it a limit order that got me in? No, it wasn't. Okay, so I remember this. Okay, so now this is market. I was going to say, did I put a limit here? No, I did not. So what am I looking for in this within this transitional? And this is again absolutely beautifully traded by me, I believe. Right. So I've got this transitional order block here. Price has slammed through it. I'd have preferred it to been up here. Okay. Um, Price slams through and then comes back up. What am I looking for? I'm looking for an unwillingness to transact and to remain in this area. This is a transitional order block. It doesn't matter if you come above it. It doesn't matter if you just touch the open. It doesn't matter if you actually spend some time in it after. It doesn't matter at all if you go over the top of it. It is a transitional order block. It's there for liquidity creation reasons, and it doesn't matter how they use it. What matters is how long we spend above it transacting, right? And so what I'm seeing here as I read price action, again, this is a 5-second chart. This is all wick. So this is on a 1-minute chart, just going to look like this is wick, and here's the body of the candle, right? And then we're pushing down. But this is all freaking wick. And what does that tell me? Unwillingness to transact in and around this area. So as I start seeing this mitigation here, whatever it is, yeah, I see this mitigation, and then I start seeing a slam down through it. At the moment we're here in price, chink, I'm in. I click the button. So this is a live market order. And I got a nice follow through. There's the follow through. Boom. I've got my 10R over here, right? Successful 10R. Yay. All is good. Woohoo. Right. But I'm still transacting and trading, right? And this is my sort of new aspect to my trading, especially this week, right? Where I'm trying to introduce additional trades while I'm still inside trades, especially the hedging, right? So as everything's going down, I'm also looking at my buy side. I'm looking at every mitigation that every time we take a liquidity from a new breaking structure, I'm looking left every single time. And it's almost annoying to me to have to do it. It takes only a few seconds, but for some reason, there's something annoying about it. I think it's all the scrolling that pisses me off. But it's what you've got to do. As a trader, this is our job to understand and decide what mitigations are occurring. So this one was a full 1 hour loss. I left this one full open. I didn't. Oh, was this break even? Actually, no. This one did go break even. Beg your pardon. It was yeah. This one did go break even. Okay. The reason I went break even on this is because we got the major break of structure down here and a continuation of price, and so I didn't want to take any more risk on this guy right here. We'd had the swing break, and it was sort of well, if we're coming back up, where are we going to come back up to? I'm seeing this sort of heavy block in here, thinking this would hold price. To be quite honest with you, and I don't really want to be holding here. We're low prices. I don't want to be putting my risk here. I know this is transitionals. Look, I know that I've even got cause symbols, liquidity symbols on here because I understand that this is also creating cause there for a future event. So let's go out of replay mode. There's my two cells. Let's go back to 15 seconds. Okay, so got one, didn't get the other, but I'm still plus 10R, right? That's cool. So now let's go to my buy side drawings, which unfortunately, no, wow. Actually, I didn't even know we'd pushed up that high. Okay, very, very cool. Man, slammer of a day, slammer of a day. This was a funky little trade, but I'm really, 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 really happy I put my take profit where I did because I was thinking let's just go, let's just go 10R again because we've got an initiation away, but it was the mitigation that told me don't do it. This we're not mitigating the buy primary. We're going to talk about that in just a sec. So let's pull that back to there. Okay, so now we're on our buy side things, right? And I'm going to talk about these two trades. Another 10R, man. Right? So positive 23 on the day, which is absolutely fucking insane, right? 23% account increase. Okay, let's talk about it. How am I going to talk about where we're going to start talking about it from? So you can kind of see what I'm thinking with those cells. So as those cells are occurring, I'm watching vigilantly what's being created. We've got small buy primaries being formed. I'm watching buy primaries fail, and so I annotate all of that. But there's just so much here to cover, and it's not really worth going into it unless we were doing a full, breakdown, a full study. Just know that I'm looking at the buys and the sells while all of this is happening. Then we get a mitigation here, which was not a buy primary, right? So we've mitigated an area that has taken liquidity, but is not a buy primary. And so I'm kind of watching what's going on. I'm like, well, they can, since liquidity has been taken, they could introduce a new event where they start to build cores, right, in this sort of area where they're trying to stack, right? Because once liquidity has been taken, a new intention can come forward. We know this. And so I'm definitely looking at what happens. However, I'm not going to trade this just based on a random, not a buy primary mitigation. If it was a sell primary, maybe. But buy primary or sell primary, it doesn't matter. If it was a primary mitigation, it gives me more weight to think there's going to be an initiation away. Since there was nothing, I have to wait for something else to form. And so I get a range, an initiation, a break of structure. I then get this range come over the top, but not break here, initiate on itself and break structure. So this is an absolutely valid buy primary to start trading off of. And this was tricky to get into this one, but we can talk about it. So this is the range I expect to hold. Okay, this down here is the limbo sort of zone where if they are going to mitigate here, then it's going to be a deep mitigation. Instead, have we got one? Let me copy and paste this one over. And I actually just mentioned this just a couple minutes ago. What happens with buy primaries? They can also fail, which fail meaning like they get used as liquidity. For what purpose? To create a new primary. And that's exactly what happened here. So we had a buy primary fail, right? Became cause. Let me see here. This low still held, right? So we had a cause event, this low still held, and they created a new buy primary that broke on itself. And you could take maybe that as a breaking structure. So I'm seeing something interesting going on here. I'm seeing a buy primary has failed, a new buy primary has been created that used it as cause, and I'm seeing that this hasn't broken structure. I'm thinking to myself, well, why? Why are they doing that? Why are they not breaking structure? And we're seeing these initiations away. And it was at this point here, let's go to a 5-second, that I'm seeing this range, right? So right before the mitigation, I see this range. They initiate down and then boom, break right through it, right? Look at this, like even this candle doesn't really do it justice, but it represents that it went right through it very fast, completely fast. Then they came back to mitigate, okay? So they push all the way through, then they come back to mitigate. Valid, right? As far as a primary range is going. Now, this primary was drawn from this low to this high. We could drag it maybe like that would make it more sense. Because you could also be seeing this thinking, this is the primary range. And if you were there, you were getting stuck and held up because you didn't know that this was actually the primary range and it had already been completely broken. Okay? So by this point here, it's broken. They come back to mitigate it. Again, no willingness, is there? An unwillingness to transact below that primary range. Do you see it? Sorry, not primary, transitionary range. So not willing to transact. And then they initiate up, break the structure. So once that's happened, we've mitigated the range, the transitional range. We've shown an unwillingness to want to transact in and around that range. And was it? And they've taken liquidity from here. So actually, I was thinking deep mitigation. I want to say deep mitigation somewhere, but it's over here, which is when the deep mitigation occurred. Okay, and it happened after my entry, which was unfortunate because I would have liked to have seen this. It happened before I got in for sure because deep mitigation is high risk. So I've got this transitionary, and I'm watching price. And I know that price can push through it. I've seen it. I've done my research on them. I know price can push through a transitionary. All I'm looking for is an unwillingness, that unwillingness to stay here. And it was this move here from this low all the way to this high. I went, boom, I want in. And so I enter, placing my stop below the low. Now, very important on this one because we've already sort of manipulated our way around. You know, we're not sort of touching the open of the transitionary and then initiating away. Absolutely not. Instead, we're spending time mitigating in and out of stuff in here. And so it's for that reason I wanted to cover that low. And so I do cover the low. And it was at this point where I get the deep mitigation. But you know, very risky move here for me to hang in here is absolutely like a goddamn miracle. To be quite fair and honest with you guys, typically I would get normally spreaded by this point, but I didn't. And you know what happened? Boom! They come straight up and over the transitionary range, and it was at that moment that I felt confident. Right, as soon as we came over that one, I felt confidence. But then they transact lower again, right? Immediately come down lower again, lower than this sort of the low of that transitionary range. And that's sort of given me worry. But again, as they come low, boom, they initiate higher again. It's a wick. It becomes a wick, right? If that was the candle, that would be like the wick looks like that. And so I'm seeing this happen. I've kind of got a little bit of confidence, but not too much until we get that massive initiation, right? And as soon as we start initiating away, up and away, um, I'm not really sort of loving everything. But it was this sort of spray up here after the deep mitigation that gave me confidence in my trade idea, and that's what really brought me into trading over to this one. So we've created again. So like I'm in a trade. We're moving up, right? I'm looking for my 10R range initiation. What is it? Break of structure. This comes in to create a primary range, takes the liquidity from the low of this one. We've got A, B, C. You know, we can look at like the range that we think's likely to hold. I mean, again, we're on a 5 second. Let's pull out to something a little bit more substantial. And there's not really much going on. There's probably the best one would be something along the lines down here, right? And it looks like there's no mitigation of it anyway. Let's just clean up the chart. Okay, back to 15 seconds. Okay, and so this trade here. So what's happening? What's going on? Why am I interested in this trade here? Again, we get a buy primary open, and instead of sort of hanging around and waiting for stuff to happen, I'm testing, playing around with this transitional order block idea. And as you can see, we get this mitigation occur right here and here. And it's this little box here that gives me sort of forthright to think that this is the transitional, range. They mitigate, they push up. Now, this one's tricky, right? I believe, as I'm seeing this, right, I had this drawn on, and I haven't done a new drawing, I think is what may have happened. Let's see this. Is it that one? They don't rip through here. Okay, this is the interesting part. I must have been on a 1 second. Let's go down to a 1 second to see all this, to see it properly. I want to show you what I was thinking, because it was this wick here that kind of gave me all the information I needed to know. Okay, so I was thinking this is the transitional range, so we should be blitzing through this. Instead, they mitigate in and out of it. So I'm thinking, well, this isn't the low then. This isn't the mitigation, because, like I said, if this is a mitigation, typically we'll see it blitz through that transitional order block break of structure. And I think what I was thinking then is it could have been like a bit of like a reversal sort of situation where I had this transitional here, and I don't think I just drew it on at the time. So and I call it a reversal situation because this is not typically this is a buy order block, right? A buy order block. And what we'd be looking for is really a sell order block. And anyway, so what I believe this is actually what I saw, and this is why I'm involved in this trade. Okay, so I see the mitigation of the open. I see this transitional not really, it works out though. This is the thing. We push higher prices through it, right? It just doesn't do the rip that I'm expecting, the fast movement. So I'm still interested, but I'm not sort of seeing what I want to see. Then we get this, the equal mitigation at the same low, and we have this range here that they blitz through to get to the mitigation and then blitz straight up. And then they come back to mitigate it. All right. Showing what? An unwillingness to transact in and around this area. And we get a break in structure, the continuation right there. Right. There's the break. So I think it was all of that in the moment that got me into this trade. And I just placed a kind of a limit in that area to cover this low. So I'm thinking this is all wick. We've shown this unwillingness to transact in and around this area. This was definitely a risky trade. Absolutely 1000% a risky trade. But I wanted to flex my skills, get in. I'm just sort of real interested in getting in, right? Which is a detriment to myself. However, this one did work out. And then where am I going for? So I mentioned earlier I was thinking maybe 10R. I didn't want to go 10R at all on this one because of high prices, the location, all of the rest of it, like even the mitigation here. And then price zips up, and I think it halted here, pulled back, and I even at that point thought, shit, should I just get out? Should I just take my profit right there, take a couple of R? But I thought, no, I do understand that they like to liquidity grab. They always like to take liquidity, right? And so they might want to take liquidity here. And they did, thankfully for me. So here was that sort of pause where I was thinking of taking money. They push up. And what was really interesting is that I was only focused on this trade. I'd forgotten all about this trade, like taking profit on this one too. This was the main one I was so concerned about. And yet, boom, this one chinks in for a 10R. Absolute lucky 10R, I might add. I understand the process, but it was like, we're not mitigating out of a buy primary. This shouldn't really be giving me sort of a good 10R move. But I had such a fucking fantastic entry down here that I was able to snag that 10R. So there's my trading day, you guys. Not trading anymore, of course, now. And I haven't obviously analyzed anything sort of since this point here. Sort of jumped on the chart as soon as this one, jumped on the video, excuse me, as soon as this one sort of connected. But a really good day. I'm gonna really, 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 really try to keep my charts clean and like annotated like this. I really enjoyed that today. Like trading like this was fun. It was super fun to have like things like just annotated on the chart. It felt good. I'm not gonna lie. It felt good to have my charts really annotated well. I feel like I did annotate really well today. So yeah, I'm pretty happy with everything. To be quite honest with you, happy with that. This first trade, happy with this trade. Uh, Amazing to get in and hold on this one, and then this was just the icing on the cake. So it was just like got into flow state. Really had some music that I like playing. Yeah, all is well. Hope you guys are crushing it. Leave me any questions, comments, and stuff like that. Love to hear from you guys, and I want to definitely make more videos, not just sort of these recap ones. So stay tuned for that. When I get more time in the future, I'll be talking about things in depth. I definitely want to do order blocks, transitionals, primaries. Want to talk all about that, and entry modals, all the rest of it. I've been I think I had it drawn out on this chart here, the sell side. I've gotten rid of it already, but there was an entry modal. I think it was maybe here. We had the sell range, enter the buy range. We had that sort of slipstream that I always talk about, and the unwillingness. Look at the reject the comes back to retest it right here, and that would have been an amazing sort of knowledge about entering it too. So I had all that drawn on. I removed them just before the video just to keep it as clean as I possibly could. But yeah, I want to do a video about the entry modals for sure, and the entry techniques that I use. So that's it. Aloha. Peace out. Catch you on the next one, etc., etc. Hope you are crushing it, smashing it, and having the absolute best life you can possibly create. I'll speak to you soon. Take care.